Mark Brown of Game Maker's Toolkit recently made a great video on the two kinds of randomness that exist in video games, Input Randomness and Output Randomness. I highly recommend you watch his video, but let me summarize it quickly. Input randomness is randomness that occurs before the player makes a decision. In Settlers of Catan, for example, you randomize the playing board and then the players choose where to lay down their initial settlements and roads. Output randomness is the exact opposite, where the player makes an action or decision, and then the randomness occurs. Imagine if, in Settlers of Catan, you had to place your initial settlements and roads on the board, and then the tiles and numbers were randomly placed down. Many players probably wouldn't like that because it removes a lot of control and strategy from the initial phase of the game. In fact, Mark Brown's video talks about how output randomness can sometimes cause frustration because it has the potential to throw a wrench into the strategy the player is using.
Output randomness is certainly more responsible for anger and resentment than input randomness. Output can take away control and break your plans, not out of strategic incompetence, but sheer bad luck.
Placing your settlements in Catan before the tiles and numbers are distributed was a hypothetical example of output randomness. But let's now look at a real one. In the Fire Emblem games, when you select a unit to attack, the game displays the hit rate, which is the chance that your attack will connect. If you go through with the attack, the game will use a randomly generated number to decide if your attack connects or if your attack misses. This is output randomness. The player committed to an action, the attack, and then randomness was applied. And as any Fire Emblem player knows, missing a hit that should have connected is one of the most annoying things that can happen in Fire Emblem. Mark Brown's video on types of randomness made me think about a game I've been playing recently, Fire Emblem Three Houses. Specifically, it made me think about one level in particular where the enemies had a luck-based ability that was really messing with my strategy and my patience. The map it occurred on is one of the final maps in the game, so those who don't want to be spoiled for the Silver Snow route, time for you to close the video. So in this final chapter, there are a ton of these massive dragons which have this skill called Miracle. Miracle means that if they were to take a lethal hit, they have a percentage chance of surviving equal to their luck stat. And since we can see their luck is 41, all of the dragons in this map have a 41% chance of surviving a lethal hit. Like here, for example, the attack should have killed the dragon, but the word guard underneath that means that Miracle activated, forcing the attack to do only 137 damage and leaving the dragon with exactly 1 health. Maybe I just got unlucky, but as I played this chapter, there were so many times that the Miracle skill activated, disrupting my plans. Like if I needed 3 people to kill a dragon, Miracle activated, the dragon would be left with 1 health, and I would need a 4th person to finish the job. This was so frustrating because, first off, there were a ton of dragons in this map, and they all have Miracle. But also, it feels like there's nothing you can do at all about Miracle activating. It's the perfect example of frustrating output randomness that Mark Brown talked about in his video. So I started thinking, what would it look like if this frustrating output randomness that you can't strategize around were converted to input randomness that you could? Here's what I came up with. Before the player takes even their very first turn, the game randomly determines whether or not Miracle will activate for each dragon. If Miracle will activate on a specific dragon, it will display that with a little marker, like a triangle. If Miracle won't activate on a specific dragon, then there will be nothing there. This is a system based on input randomness instead of output randomness, because now the random factors, whether or not the dragon will have Miracle activate, occurred before the player's actions. This would be way less frustrating as a player because now you could strategize around the fact that a dragon will or won't have Miracle activate. So that's how we could change the Miracle skill from output randomness to input randomness. But I was curious and I wondered if we could take this farther. Would it be possible to turn other elements of output randomness in Fire Emblem into input randomness? For example, could we concoct a system where something as fundamental as your attacks hitting or missing are ruled by input randomness as opposed to output randomness? I think so, and here's what I would do. Display all the hit rates the game is going to use in the battle in the order they're going to be used. If your hit rate is higher than the first number in the queue, the attack will connect and the next hit rate will queue up. If your hit rate is lower than the queue value, then it'll miss and the next hit rate will queue up. But you probably wouldn't even initiate an attack if you saw that it was going to miss. This simple change, displaying all the hidden values used to determine hit rate, would effectively turn Fire Emblem's biggest system of output randomness into one of input randomness. Gone are the days of pulling your hair out because a 97% chance to hit missed and your guy died. Now you know exactly what will happen every time you engage in battle. It's perfect, right? The funny thing is, I don't think I'd actually want this system to exist in a Fire Emblem game. I know Mark Brown's video and my own talk about how annoying output randomness can be, but changing something as ubiquitous as Fire Emblem's hit rate from output to input randomness essentially changes the entire game. Fire Emblem's combat isn't meant to be a system that can be neatly dissected and micromanaged until you find the perfect combination of hit rates and interactions. It's meant to be a little messy, forcing players to make strategic decisions based on situations where you don't have all the information, and adapting when things don't go your way. And this realization helped me understand one last and important thing about Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem's combat isn't purely output randomness. It's really a combination of output and input. Yes, an attack missing or something like miracle activating is purely output randomness, and it's annoying. But the thing about Fire Emblem is that you have many different units that you control and make decisions with per turn. One unit missing their attack sucks, but your turn isn't over after that. You get to look at yourself and say, okay, well, this happened. What do I do now to deal with this? Maybe it means the next unit you select uses a weapon with a higher hit percentage, or maybe it means you'll have to take an extra turn to get rid of the enemy. Maybe you decide to literally rewind time to before that output randomness screwed you over and try a different strategy altogether. Even though there is a lot of output randomness, the structure of the battle system means there is also some input randomness to balance it out. I want to end this video with a comment that I saw on Mark Brown's video, which I really liked, describing the difference between input or good randomness and output or bad randomness. As I think about this, I think for me it comes down to the following. Good luck-based gameplay says, X happened, now how will you deal with it? And opens up options. Bad luck-based gameplay says, X happened, too bad, so sad, and destroys options or even ends your game. Fire Emblem has both of those types of randomness and both of those types of situations. And while it is at times infuriating, it's still one of my favorite games of all time. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. Thank you also to the patrons who support me, especially our super patron Skeptical7th. You are awesome. If you want to see my videos early, have your name featured here, and see some patron-exclusive content, consider supporting me on Patreon. Otherwise, consider subscribing and clicking that little gray bell so you'll always know when I upload. Thanks again, and peace.